It's NHL trade deadline season, and we saw a couple massive deals today. One that saw Gustav Nyquist become a Minnesota Wild, and the other which saw nice swap of players getting swapped from the Rangers and the Avalanche, but the headliner being Ryan Lindgren heading over to the Avalanche. Now, we felt this was the perfect time with about a week or just a little bit under a week left before the NHL trade deadline to make our top 10 guys to get traded before or during NHL trade deadline day. Make sure to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for the best hockey content on YouTube. And without further ado, let's get it started with our first guy.
For our first player, we have Mikko Rantanen. Now, at first glance, you might be a little bit shocked because Mikko Rantanen was just dealt in a blockbuster trade around a month ago, I'd say. That saw Martin Necas being shipped to the Colorado Avalanche and obviously Mikko Rantanen coming back in that deal. Now, everyone thought that Carolina Hurricanes had become an immediate Stanley Cup contender, and they were looking very good until Mikko Rantanen hasn't had the greatest start to his Hurricanes career. Now, also what they were saying is that he was offered a deal during the Four Nations Faceoff. That basically means that Rantanen saw the deal but didn't decide to sign it, and that brought up a lot of questions. Will he re-sign because they gave up a lot, for just a one-year rental? Then that kind of changes a lot of things. So that leads to this card. Mikko Rantanen is kind of back on the trade board for the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, obviously, they still can get a deal done, but if they don't, then they might just have to trade him. Obviously, he's a guy who will play on your first line, first power play. But yeah, Mikko Rantanen on number 1 on our trade bait list.
The number 2 guy we have is Rickard Rakell. Now, Rickard Rakell is locked up for 3 more years after this one at $5 million. This year, he has got 49 points in 60 games. He's doing very well with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's a middle six forward, solid two-way player, and I think a lot of teams could use to boost their middle six, get a playoff player like Rickard Rakell, and he could definitely help out for sure.
For the number 3 player on the list, we have Montreal Canadiens forward Jake Evans. He's a guy that, he's around half a point per game. He's a bottom 6 forward and a PK specialist, one of the top penalty kill guys in the league. He's another depth guy that you really want on your team if you're trying to make a playoff run. He's only making $1.7 million for this year, so he is a rental, but overall, he's a great guy that any contending team could use.
The next guy on our list is a massive contract in Seth Jones. Seth Jones making $9.5 million for the next 5 years after this year. 27 points in 42 games is pretty decent for a defenseman, actually. He is a top 4 defenseman on pretty much any team in the NHL, and is he definitely an offensive defenseman, probably going to be a quarterback on most teams' power plays. Listen, Seth Jones is a very good NHL player. The question is, where does he go, and does he go to a place where he'll buy in? He's kind of bought out in Chicago. He had those crazy quotes basically blasting his team, saying how bad they are, which I kind of understand. But obviously, you want to see a little more buy-in from a vet, obviously trying to help a young team in a rebuild. Not great from Seth Jones. Making a lot of money. I don't really know what the price is going to be on those kind of guys, so Chicago fans, let us know in the comments. But Seth Jones is on our trade bait board.
Now we got another player from the Chicago Blackhawks, could be dealt, and that is none other than Ryan Donato. Donato is a depth forward with a great scoring touch. He's a guy that in the playoffs, you need scoring all around, and he's a guy that on your 3rd or 4th line can get you that scoring you need. In addition, he can also play on your second power play unit. This season, he's got 40 points in 57 games, so great offensive production, and he's only making $2 million for this year.
The next guy on our list is a rental in Brock Nelson, who is a very experienced vet, established 2C, has been with the Islanders for forever, was at the Four Nations. This year, he's got 38 points in 58 games, 17 goals, 21 assists, which is very good for a guy of Brock Nelson's age. Obviously, can definitely go to a contender and be a 2C. Toronto kind of team is the kind of market that I'm looking at for a guy like Brock Nelson, who I think can be a really good piece on any team going to the playoffs.
For our next guy, we got Brandon Tanev. Now, Tanev is a grinder and a penalty kill specialist. If you need a shot blocker at the end of the game with 1 minute left, you're up by a goal, this is the guy you put on the ice. For the next year, he's making $3.5 million. He's got 17 points in 58 games. Although the offensive stats might not be there, he's the guy that can slot in your bottom 6 and just get the job done, especially in the playoffs, providing you great defensive hockey and also putting his body on the line. you need a guy like that come playoff time.
The next guy on our list is a very interesting one in Braden Shen, who's making a lot of money, $6.5 million for the next 3 years after this one. 60 games this year. He's got 36 points, 12 goals, 24 assists. He is a definite leader, won a cup right there in St. Louis, so he is definitely going to be a guy that St. Louis wants to retain if they can, and they're not going to trade him unless the price is right. I know there's a lot of rumors about the Toronto Maple Leafs out there. They're pretty active in the trade market. That's why you hear me mention their name more than once here in this video. But I do think that Braden Shen is a guy that the Leafs should be looking at. I don't know necessarily if they're willing to pay up the price that they want. St. Louis definitely wants a lot for Braden Shen. I don't know if he's worth what they want. Makes sense, obviously, trading a guy like Braden Shen. But I do think that he's a very good candidate to get traded if the right offer comes. So I guess it's a question of, will the right offer come?
For our 9th player on the list, we have Brock Besser. This year, obviously, with the Vancouver Canucks, there's a lot of drama in that locker room, and their season hasn't really been going the way they wanted to. Now, that brings up a question, can they trade a guy like Brock Besser? There are some rumors surrounding his name, but he is a second-line winger who can put the puck in the net when you need him to. He's a pure goal scorer, and that's the type of guy that he performs in the playoffs, and he can definitely boost up a team's scoring come playoff time. He's making $6.65 million for the next year, so maybe they get some retaining salary on that, but a great asset to have.
And the last guy on our list for the top 10 guys we think are going to get traded is Scott Laughton. Now, Scott Laughton making 27 points this year in 57 games. Definitely a established 3C. Definitely a two-way forward. You know, the guy you want on your team come playoff time. Tough guy, grinding, get the puck out of the corners. That kind of vibe. He's making $3 million for next year after this year. So I don't know necessarily if there will be a retained salary on that contract if it is get dealt. Philadelphia is known to have won at least a second-round pick or higher for Scott Laughton. I don't know if teams will pay up. We will see. I don't think it harms Philadelphia to keep him, similar to Jake Evans in Montreal, except for this guy, you have him for next year locked down. So I do wonder if Philadelphia, if they don't just get the right offer, they'll just keep him. Doesn't hurt them. Let's see how this plays out, but I'm very intrigued to see if Scott Laughton gets dealt.
So that's going to do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching this video. The trade deadline is just around a corner, under a week away. It's going to be a very fun one, so stay tuned for a lot more content related to that coming soon. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.